Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The ILO report on the global employment trends for youth in 2017 predicted that by 2018, unemployment amongst the youth would be around 71.1. We must also take cognizance of the fact that the world has, as we knew it, some of us at least, has been changing. The climate changes, the migration patterns, the increase in conflicts around the world, the sluggish growth of the economy, all of these have actually put us to worry, because even though we are supposed to feel a little bit at ease with the age of digitalization, it also becomes a challenge and a potential advantage. So it is important for us to welcome this panel, because they will deal with this important thing of the future work. What is it? How must we understand it? And to do so, I immediately want to invite Mr. Daniel de Rioja, the chairman of the Argentina's B20. You're welcome, sir. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot for the invitation. On behalf of the business community represented at this G20 process, I want to thank for the invitation and the possibility to participate in this debate. First thing that I want to raise is the question of the business community was very active during this process. Our summit was on October 4th and 5th. And I want to tell you that more than 1,800 people were around the table during the 2 days discussion. And during a year of process in which 1,700 members of companies and national federations were discussing in the 8 task forces organized under the thematic question fixed by the Argentinian process. The other thing that I want to mention in general terms is that it was very important also the way in which the agenda was fixed and the way in which we work with the Troika. I want to confirm certainly the participation of the German, our predecessors, and certainly the Japanese. And during our summit, we also organized a Troika panel in order to be sure that the Troika process was confirmed, not only in terms of agenda, but also in terms of follow-up, because this is a key question for all the engagement groups and mainly for the business community. The other thing is that we not only sign up our communique, and we gave it to the President Macri, but also we sign up declarations with other engagement groups, with Labor 20, with Women 20, with civil society, on the main issues that we thought that it was necessary to fix position. The third and last comment is, we strongly believe in the process of the G20. We are convinced that the G20 process is good for our nations, our emergent nations as Argentina. And multilateralism is the way in order to build up a world in which we can respect each other and to build up solutions at the global level that could be good for everybody, and not unilateral solutions that are clearly against the spirit of the G20 as a whole. Let me now turn to our own agenda on the issue of the future of work. The first question is not the future of work. The technological changes are here and now, and we need to be prepared, and we need to prepare our people. Well, business community need to transform itself in order to respond to the technological changes, but also, at the same time, to work together with the governments and with the workers in order to make them employable. Employability is a key word for the future. If we do not have people prepared, it will be very difficult to have the technological transformation, and the social inclusion and evolution. Social development need to be and to go together with economic development. That's our view on that. And then let me turn to, very briefly, to our conclusions. The first one, in conclusions and recommendations to the government, and we hope that we have some influence in the final document of the head of states. Promote open, dynamic, and inclusive labor markets, supporting, first, entrepreneurship and innovation. Why first? Because if we are not able to create a spirit of entrepreneurship, it's impossible to create jobs. Because we strongly believe that the role of the private sector is key, is essential for the development of the countries. Then we need people prepared to be entrepreneurs, to innovate and so on. Second, a system that enabling an environment for entrepreneurship and education for entrepreneurship. That is a big issue also, especially for a small enterprise, micro and small enterprises. That is the reality of at least more than 13 of the 20 countries, emergent countries of the G20. The second is promote different forms of work. The traditional vision created for the first and second revolution, industrial revolution, is not updated. We cannot see the world of work with the same eyes that 50 years ago. We need to adapt. But we need to adapt to have legal frameworks and respect to the fundamental labor rights. Because if we work informally, outside the rules, finally, slavery, and probably different form of slavery, will appear. And we do not, as business community, we do not like that. We do not want that. And we ask the government to have realistic project job creation and not against with regulation, over regulations and so on, or absolutely outdated regulations that are not able to respond to the real needs of the world of work today. Certainly, the second recommendation on this issue is strengthening female participation. In the question of gender, we work a lot in order to have in our own constituency women. We have over 1,800 of people. We had 27% of women participation at the Business 20, the highest in the 10 years of the story of the B20, but certainly not enough. But one of the questions that we need to think for the future, you, the governments, is how to deal with these silos. Women, certainly there are problems of women, but when we talk about business and women, it's the same arena. And then we need to work together and not isolated and try to solve it just with a common final declaration. The key question is to work together. And I think that this is something that at least we promote, and our constituency supported very strongly. Develop also targeted initiatives aimed to increasing youth participation in the labor market. That is clear. Countries like Argentina, for example, have a very high level, and practically half of the G20 countries have problems with the youth employment. In our cases, it's worse because we have people youth that neither work nor study. That's clearly a major problem for the society. We need to integrate that. Youth participation is key also in this. Improve the labor market integration with for persons with disabilities is also something that is very, very important for us, and we include it in our recommendations. Address conditions that encourage to formalize the informal sector. For us is key. There is no possibility to survive countries that have more than 50% of the the labor market at the informal sector. That's also imply that couldn't develop that company. It couldn't export, couldn't be at the formal market because they have a lot of restriction. That's the market view. But the other view is the integration of the society. It couldn't be integration absolutely in the informal sector because, well, I raised the question first. Another question, and I'm coming to the end on that, is the question of migration. We need to solve, to discuss it seriously, because the question of migrations are part of the natural process of the globalization. Then we need to integrate it, not only in the question of how to enter to a country, but also how to validate certifications, etc., of studies in order to participate in the labor market in that field. Certainly, the last point is skills. There is a gap. There is a clear gap, and there will be, because the evolution of the technology is faster. Then, what characterizes this globalization process nowadays is change and speed. Then we need to be prepared to respond to this change and this speed in the process. But that's not only our responsibility, certainly is public-private partnership is essential for that. In the case of education, we need, at least countries like my own country, Argentina, need a revolution in education. Revolution implies we need to update our vision in order to respond to these technological changes. Because if not, you have people that study nothing, because you are not ready to respond to the real needs of the world of work. And certainly lifelong term learning at every age, because inclusion also is for all people, taking into account the expectations. And let me conclude saying that these are the main recommendations of our paper. Our communiqué is at your disposal, and certainly we are very proud of the work done by the B20, by consensus, and with a high level of participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We now come to our second presenter, Ms. Ankie Broekers-Knol, the Speaker of the Senate of the Netherlands. Ma'am, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege for the Dutch Parliament and for me personally to be here today and to be invited to speak to you in the framework of the G20 about the future of work. To my colleagues from the Argentinian Parliament and Mrs. Gabriela Cuevas, the President of the Interparliamentary Union, I say, and forgive me if the pronunciation is not good, muchas gracias para invitarnos a esta conferencia muy importante. In 2019, the International Labour Organization, the oldest UN specialized agency, celebrates its 100th anniversary. In this run-up to the anniversary, the ILO has launched 7 centenary initiatives to face the challenges of the future. One of these centenary initiatives is about the future of work. I will try to outline here today what my country's contribution is to the global debate on the future of work and what we believe to be important. But let me first give some preliminary observations on the motto, the future of work. The motto presupposes, in my opinion, that there is work. Speaking about the future of work means how can we create future work for the majority of the population, what kind of work, under what conditions, what challenges create the time we live in regarding work, and these are indeed important questions to which we must try to find an answer. But one can also ask the question, why talk about work? Is work still an important issue in the world of tomorrow? The question now can quickly be answered. Work creates the possibilities to provide for your family. Work creates possibilities to acquire money, to improve living conditions. It creates the possibilities to acquire money to buy goods. And work creates purpose in life, which is very important. And work is beneficial to the economy, it's beneficial to emancipation. And when we are talking about the subject on a global perspective, we must also realize that in different parts of the world there is a different outlook on work and the future of it. Let me explain. If you live in the Netherlands, the discussion on the future of work is totally different from what in other parts of the world, from other parts in the world. In the Netherlands, we are talking about digitalization, economic trends, ecological problems, etc., because there is work. In other parts of the world, the discussion is more like, is there any work? What kind of work? Will it last? Does the work pay well? Does the work have untimely hours? Are the working conditions safe? Because we all know that in many parts of the world, the lack of work, and if there is work, the working conditions, for instance, work by young children, monotonous work, decent work, social justice, are the first things that have to be tackled before we can even consider the future of work. And I add to this, it goes hand in hand with education. You were talking about it as well. Having said this, I will now proceed to my own country, the Netherlands, and the way we in the Netherlands try to meet the challenges of work and employment in the future. The Dutch Social Economic Council has indicated 4 main trends relevant to the future of work. First, economic trends like growth, globalization and other structural changes. Secondly, technological trends, including changes in ICT, robotization and artificial intelligence. 3, demographic and social cultural trends like changes in the size and composition of the population. And lastly, ecological trends like developments with regard to sustainability and climate. I will briefly touch upon these 4 trends. With regard to economic trends, we should remind our governments that our objectives should involve more than the promotion of economic growth alone. They should also comprise social progress and good quality living environment. An issue that is high on the agenda in the Netherlands is the debate on how to deal with the increased flexibility of the labor market. With regard to the technological trends, some say that we are on the brink of the 4th industrial revolution, in which digitalization and robotization will change the nature of work and production in the coming decades. Looking at the past, we can be positive. The innovations of the 1st, 2nd and 3rd industrial revolutions brought great progress to our societies. But this gives no guarantees. We should make sure that our societies adapt to technological developments. And also, positive effects in general tell us nothing about negative effects for individuals, for small groups, for the effect it has on work as we know it. We should care also for those who are left behind and make sure that negative effects, for example, in the field of employment, are limited for everyone. We must come up with new perspectives. And when it comes to the demographic and social cultural trends, industrialized countries should strive for an inclusive labor market and a robust social dialogue that involves all relevant parties. In the Netherlands, we have organized our social economic dialogue in what is known as the polder model. The polder model is characterized by the tripartite cooperation between employers, organizations, labor unions, and the government. The key word is consensus. And in the Netherlands, this polder model has been very effective in the last decades. It goes without saying that the future of work also means women's economic empowerment. Last but not least, we have to deal with the ecological trends. Global warming leads to climate change worldwide. Drought, flooding, melting of the ice caps. Important transitions are needed to deal with these climate changes, as a result of which we have to seriously consider the reserves of raw materials, food, and clean water. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Dutch economy and Dutch policy making are closely interwoven with Europe and with the rest of the world. This is a direct effect of our century-long open and trade-dependent economy. Many Dutch businesses operate internationally. Multinationals are responsible for a large proportion of our employment. Hubs such as the Port of Rotterdam and the Airport of Schiphol are major access ports to Europe for the rest of the world. And the same goes for many other countries. The world as a whole is interconnected. I therefore say, the future of work does require global governance. And yes, let us not forget that in large parts of our world there is still a lot to be done to create work, to create decent working conditions before we can even speak of the future of work in these areas. But at the same time, ideas and developments about the future of work have their impact on creating work wherever in the world. This is why this discussion in the framework of the G20 is so very important. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Honorable members, we will now move on to Ms. Shobha Karandalaje. Ms. Karandalaje is a member of Parliament of the House of Representatives in India. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Dear Chairman, Madam, Chairman of the G20 Argentina, all speakers and dear delegates. Today we are discussing a subject of critical significance of our times. The future of work is an important G20 agenda introduced by present Argentinian presidency. The G20 intends to develop and formulate a menu policy of options that can guide countries while formulating their domestic policies in dealing with the impact of technology on the world of work. The concept relates to unprecedented opportunities and significant challenges facing the labor markets, producers, consumers, due to the evolution of transformative technologies like artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain technology, quantum computers, robotics, etc. The development of automation enabled by technologies, including robotics and artificial intelligence, has raised difficult questions about the broader impact of automation on jobs, skills, education, wages, and the nature of work itself. The future of work and society must entail an environmentally sustainable development path. The promotion of economic growth and decent work has to be achieved in tandem and not at the expense of environment and natural resources, base that support economic activity and livelihoods. The Sustainable Development Goals articulate this challenge by highlighting how in the medium and long-term decent work is only possible in the context of environmental sustainability. Friends, you will agree with me that having access to decent employment opportunities is a major structural element of the social contract. It shapes the rights and responsibility of workers and employees, thereby fostering social mobility and in terms of fair distribution of resources and power in a society. In this context, one of the most daunting challenges for the future of work would be to reduce income inequalities. Income inequality, as measured by the Gini Index, a widely recognized mechanism for measuring inequalities, remains extremely high even in much of the developed and emerging world. According to International Labour Organization, it is estimated that the world needs to create 600 million new jobs by 2030, major in the developing countries. This is just to employ the youth force entering labor market and to boost the participation of women in line with the internationally agreed targets and objectives. The International Labour Organization has formed a global commission on future of work. The commission's mandate is to provide analytical basis for delivery of ILO's social justice plank in the 21st century by identifying the key challenges facing the job markets and marketing practical recommendations about how these may be addressed in future. According to the World Economic Forum, the world is on the threshold of fourth industrial revolution that has potential to raise global income levels and improve the quality of life for populations around the world. The impact of this agenda on India is extremely significant. There are 1 million youth in India entering workforce every month. According to a World Bank report, 69% of the jobs in India can be replaced by automation, thereby further aggravating the job scenario. According to a report on the future of jobs in India, a 2022 perspective being brought out by the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Association of Software and Services Companies and Ernst & Young. The overall job scenario in India is evolving. Current surveys that focus on employment in traditional sectors no longer provide to accurate representation of job creation. The growth of e-commerce and technology-based sectors is leading to the creation of new job ecosystems which are becoming large-scale source of employment. Informal employment in sectors such as infrastructure, retail is fairly large and continues to grow. The government's large investments in infrastructure sectors such as highways, renewable energy, urban transport, shipping, affordable house, smart cities, Swachh Bharat, rural road network program, national waterways, airports, and industrial corridors, etc., have become large creators of jobs in the country. In fine, the overall push for the entrepreneurship through innovative schemes of the present leadership, such as Stand Up India, Startup India, self-help groups, Mudra Loan, Skill India, are also beginning to show a positive impact on job creation and opportunities for livelihoods. However, the further jobs by year 2022 in India is to be determined by the country's response to the inevitable impact created by interplay of these three forces: globalization, demographic changes, and the adoption of Industry 4.0 exponential technologies by Indian industries, enterprises, and businessmen. We have optimistic, achievable, tangible outcomes based on the strength of fundamentals of our economy and projected growth of GDP. The issues of labor mobility and social protection are the particular interest to India. Migrant workers constitute an important segment of workforce in many G20 countries. And we should alert about the illegal migration of workers in cross-border also. That is also the problem in many countries. India can use opportunity to generate sufficient new employment opportunities for the existing and growing labor force, create decent jobs with better wages, securities, protections, and safety necessary for the improving individual and household welfare and well-being, ensure equal opportunities for women, youth, and other marginalized communities previously unable to participate equally in the paid economy, establish an ecosystem better equipped to prepare the workforce for changing skill and educational requirements, create of an inclusive policy environment which balances the need for job creation with the interest of the worker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now open up for comments from the floor. Questions? Please be considerate so that we can allow as many people as possible to participate if they so wish. The floor is open. I have a hand from Mexico. Yes?
Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone. I agree with many things that you have said in this panel, and I think that we have a very, very big deal with education for every kind of employment. I agree that the emergent countries, we are dealing with different things than the developed ones, and we have to think about multilateralism, but also with co-responsibility in different countries that they don't have the possibility to do it by themselves. So we have to think about what are we going to do in this new global world about this co-responsibility in many things, in education, with dealing with migration and the work market, and all the human rights that we are also having troubles in many, many different countries. So I think this forum is really, really important so we can work together to solve these troubles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I do not see, oh, there's another hand there. The panel is noting and we will respond.
Hi, thank you this morning for your excellent presentations. I'm Dr. Lisa Cameron, MP from the House of Commons at Westminster in London. I wanted to just make a further comment about the need for people with disabilities to be getting into employment, but also to be given the opportunity to become entrepreneurs and to develop their own business and their own business ideas, which can often enable them to have flexible working conditions, which can ensure that they reach into the marketplace. And I also wanted to comment that I think parliaments have a key decision-making and support role in ensuring that young people with disabilities come into Parliament, are able to work within parliaments and perhaps go on to become parliamentarians as well. So I look forward to working with everyone from the forum today to achieve those key aims for young people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other hand? Say, this side.
Thank you very much for the presentation. In the past, we have in the Industrial Revolution, there is a huge investments, and foreign direct investment could play a role. That country can invest in another country and in factories and other, they create jobs and they let people work in these jobs. When it comes to technology, is it the same? I mean, how the foreign direct investment could play a role in helping emerging countries, developing countries, to gain and to benefit from the technology that is abroad in the developed countries. So is there a way that the developing country could receive this kind of assistance? Because really technology, it's not a huge investment in terms of money, but how to transfer it and property right and all this, how we can manage to get the developing country and the emerging country benefit from this huge revolution in the technology. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Panel, who goes first? Please go.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Well, may I enter into the last question, and then I have a comment to the other one. The question of foreign direct investment is the first precondition is the rule of law. The question is that if the states respect the rule of law, the previsibility is a precondition in order to enter. This is not a jump. This is something that needs to be evaluated. And we discussed it since 10 years ago when we started as a B20. We discussed it many times because, yes, there is no one-size-fits-all response. We have different countries with different modalities. But there is something structurally. If you have the rule of law, if you have previsibility, if you have not many distortions at the market based on taxation, that need to be clear, the legal system in order to sign a contract, the rules of migration, because when you invest also, you need to have some, at least at your staff level, to have people, and certainly not only at national level. Let me tell you that based on our own experience in federal countries, when you have three levels, national, provincial, and local, you have an overlapping and contradictions and over-regulation and so on. That implies that many investors say, I do not prefer that. I prefer much more clear previous way. And the last one, transparency. I want to emphasize that very clearly. During our discussion this year, is that clear that the question of transparency was at the present at any moment because at the region many things happened. Then we gave to the discussion on transparency, compliance, a very strong emphasis. But not only for the big enterprises, but also for the small ones. Because if you want to have a supply chain in which the small companies can enter, you need also to have the same structure of rules for them in order to prevent any type of corruption. That's regarding the IAD. Regarding the education, clearly, many of our countries need to remove barriers, need to make understand the other stakeholders of the society that it's a common challenge. We need to integrate our society. Our challenge to integrate to the world and the speed, and I fully endorse what our Korean colleagues said. And what they did, they entered into the dual system in order to prepare the people and to prepare all the people to be part of the process. And I think that the question is, in that case, is to have the adequate frameworks for education adapted to the real needs. Because at the moment, this is a classic or pattern for education, but there are specific when you enter in VAT systems in order to have something much more concrete with what you can do as a production system in your country. And the question of handicap, there is also a challenge on infrastructure. For big companies, they can, many times they can solve problems. But the small companies that employ in our countries, more than 80% of the employment, if you want to create people for disadvantaged people, you need to have the facilities. You cannot create that because you are a small company. But you can create jobs and certainly to have to hire that people, but you need that the infrastructure of the country, the physical infrastructure to help you and help the people to do so. Thank you.
Ma'am, do you wish to respond?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, my neighbor already talked a lot about the importance of education, and that also should answer your question, because I do think education is the key word also for the emerging countries to be helped by the industrialized countries, because with education they can bring about change and improvement and the modern means for work. But it's not only the developed countries should give help with education in the emerging countries. It's also in our own countries, in our developed countries. I spoke about people who stay behind, people who are the elderly, for instance, at this moment, are lagging behind because they have not got the skills yet to handle our digitalized society. In the Netherlands, there are lots of portals with which you communicate with our government. But if you don't know how to work these portals, you don't get an answer. So gradually, you have to realize that there is more to it than meets the eye, let's say that. You have to help people to use all these modern means that we have. In another generation, everybody knows how to work with it. But then there may be other challenges have risen. That's what's been, we have seen all these ages. We are now in the fourth industrialization period. But on the other periods, it's also for people to know what to do, how to come about it, how to help other countries, how to develop. And I talked about the importance of, no, not the importance. I talked about the polder model we have in the Netherlands. And that's, I think, a key word to manage the problems of the societies and the challenges of our societies. Also the challenge that was mentioned by the representative of the UK, young people with a handicap. If you have the polder models, that you have employers' organizations and labor organizations and the government in the end is controlled by parliament, to work together, to come to consensus, yeah, I won't say you have the best of two worlds, but that is the way to go about in the future to face the challenges of our future and of the future of work as a whole. So I think, yeah, well, I can talk about the polder model the whole day, but I'm not going to do that. But I think that is very important, that we work together, and then the enterprises are represented, the labor market is represented, government is represented, and parliament can use its influence. So I do hope that is also an answer to your question, the representative from Mexico. Thank you.
Can we get another round? I don't see any hands. I must then conclude that the panel has done a very good job, that they have actually not only brought us up to speed and pointed out to us some of the challenges that some of us may not have been looking at, but they certainly have shared experiences which should put us as parliamentarians back on the road of going back into our parliaments and looking at our policies. Are we implementing them? Do we have the required laws? What can we change to make sure that we prepare ourselves adequately? Certainly, South Africa is one of those countries that has a problem with matching jobs with education, and we are working on that. I must thank you very much for being a very good audience, and I must thank this panel for really, really being good, not only at keeping time, but also of teasing out those issues that we need to know and to prepare ourselves for, and for giving us lessons to take back home. what to look for, what to avoid. So I thank you very much, and I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.